Mm-hmm.
In modern times, they call it a spirit being, right? The whole like being is the part of the self that is projected into the physical form that animates you as your body goes through the process of metabolism,
Mm-hmm.
the burning in the breath.
Mm-hmm.
So you always have to inhale oxygen in order to exhale the carbon as it is consumed. It's a it's an energy exchange taking place at every level because the same process of energy conversion that the human body goes through, the atom itself goes through the same process. And when we draw out and look at the universe, it goes through the same process. So when we examine the self, we looked at what we made of at our simplest levels, the cellular level. At the cellular level, we made of crystalline amino acids in a double helix with a sizable portion inactive called junk DNA. And we understand that the unveiled matrix is the matrix in the mitochondrial, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It become a step down capacitor when you condense stardust into a human body in order not to cause spontaneous human combustion because too much light will burn you from the inside out if you can't control it. So the conditions in the person's life is according to their temperament, and it's the temper as the temperance card in the tarot, their ego, so that it can be purified to facilitate the full um, embodying of the higher light body into the physical form without the chaotic resistance of the carbon based ego, right? Once the whole light being becomes conscious in the physical body, your awareness of the entire hologram, you see it. So the scientists explain it using physics and metaphysics. The mystics use mysticism and uh, what's that other term? The mystics use mysticism and metaphysics to teach the same thing. Now, when you look into the human training process, every field of learning, when you get to a certain level, you end up into some form of metaphysics, quantum physics, or mysticism, or something of that sort, what we call the occult. The occult is the things that the average layperson will never have the time to properly consume to activate those faculties of consciousness that's at rest within that person, right? Because the humdrum of the day to day life is the distraction so that somebody else can harvest their energy. And it's like you over hijacking another person's avatar in the video game,
Indeed.
and you making their avatar do what you want them to do,
Mm-hmm.
right? The only way to remedy that is to find all of the what Bobby Hemmings talked about, spirit artificial, right? He said if in one of his lectures he said this counterfeit spirit is still on the earth, but it was here long before what they call white people. And he said, I'm gonna tell you something else. And this was a shocker for me. He said that these folks, they look just like us. Half of them still in Africa to this day, doing that motherfucking destructive conjure work in order to steal the blessings of the righteous and subjugate them in order to hijack their avatars. So then, in computer terms, they put in a hard drive that holds um, a series of binary codes that clears out the bugs in the computer and call it virus protection. This become the old souls that understand how the system worked from its creation, because the old souls was there from the earliest creation. And this takes us to the Lovecraft Necronomicon, and the story is told as a fiction, but it's actually the ancient conjure, and it actually is a living sigil packet, and how to activate it and use it the same as you use an app on your phone, except you using a spiritual app in order to develop a function in the physical realm from the spiritual realm that you already supposed to be tapped into.
You talking about H.P. Lovecraft?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, right. Damn, it's powerful, man.
So they scattered the pieces around. My job was to find the scattered pieces and bring them all together. And people came from far and wide to give me little pieces to the puzzle, right? And I had to keep track of all of the pieces to the puzzle in order to put it together. So my mother preloaded me on doing puzzles when I was little, because she used to always want me to do puzzles with her,
Mm. Excellent.
right? So I see the puzzles in all forms now, and now I can read the ticker in the matrix, so to speak. So when I be talking about stuff, I be talking about it like I'm reading that ticker from the matrix.
Mm. Mm. Well, well, in terms of, let me put the camera back. Yeah, like I said, I'm just, I'm amazed in listening to you speak, my brother. Always amazing information when you're on here. Once again, shout out to everybody that is in the building. Make sure you hit the like button. We have an amazing show so far, and we're gonna continue. We'll be on here for about half an hour more, 45 minutes. So enjoy yourself here while we're here, family. Rod Hayes. So I asked you about what we call Big Mama. Now you talk a lot about Inky and Lil and the Anunnaki. Um, these lesser gods, since we all come from this infinite intelligence, where did they get their jealousy from? Where did they get their envy from? Where did they get these traits from? Being that we all come, we're this hologram. You said the piece of the hologram contains all hologram, so we're just as we got the same amount of power as the entire hologram. I mean, we just appear to be small, but we're really big in stature. Where did they get this inferiority complex from, Rod Hayes, to do all this shit? Because they
It's
seem to be intelligent.
the same thing as to ask in the Sega Genesis game. Mike Tyson is Ironhead,
Mm,
and he the hardest character in the game to beat.
mm,
So you asking that question is like asking, why is the character Ironhead the hardest character to beat?
mm, mm.
It's the same question value.
Got you.
And the reason is because it's programmed that way.
Mm, mm, mm.
There's no other reason, because if we living in a holographic simulation, we living in a program.
Got you.
And if we living in a program, we got to continuously upgrade the software in order for the program to remain current. It's the same with computers. It's the same with the human mind. Our human minds is reduced to lesser thinking with base gossip in order to keep us from ever thinking about more complex questions. And they make us think that we wrong if we ask questions in the society that go against the standard or the norm.
Mm, definitely, definitely. how long does this program, Big Mama, allow this program to go on? Like we said, we keep going through these cycles: the age of Kali, the let's say the age of Aquarius, the age of Pisces. Then the civilization rises, civilization falls again, then it rises again and falls again. Does this go on for infinity? Does Big Mama allow this universal program to go on to infinity, or do you think does this eventually end according to the ancient texts?
It's a training simulation.
Mm,
Okay, so when you go to the laws of Mott, we know that the whole goal is to find the balance,
mm,
right? Now, if what happens to a star when it loses its balance in real life, according to our understanding of astrology?
what happens?
It goes supernova,
Mm, mm,
right? It can no longer hold on to its own energy.
mm,
In the human form, we learning how to control our energy in an accelerating learning program
mm, mm,
by going through a couple of lifetimes of refining the balancing mechanisms from different angles, right? That's being influenced by different angels,
mm, mm,
right? And they are teaching you how to control your light body matrix. And you once you do that, you become your own neutron star
mm,
in the galaxy, and you become the god in that galaxy universe you create. And to do it all over again to determine um how to refine the balancing of the overall universe in the end.
mm,
So when we look at the polarization of outer space, we're looking at something called the red shift and the blue shift.
mm, mm,
One is drawing things ever closer to the center, and another is pulling everything furthest to its outer reaches,
mm,
right? They
mm,
call it the red shift and the blue shift.
mm,
It's taking place at simultaneously in the same matrix.
mm,
So this creates the two opposing forces, and you need two opposing fixed points in order to establish the base for making the hologram. And they have to be able to to scan, um, for lack of a better way of explaining it, longitude to latitude, and from prime meridian to prime meridian, like an X-ray, right? And then you look at it externally as from us outside of the creation in order to know how you should perceive your inner world by looking inward, then looking back out. It's a comparative analysis of your inner development of your own personal soul so that you can purify your ego and become more um, like it's like graduating high school going to university, right? When you awaken in the matrix, now you graduated. Once you graduate, now you go to university for higher education. And in the meantime, you have a period between the two where you enjoy your graduation gifts before you go to university, right? So you have your graduation party, you hang out with your family for about 6 months or a year, and then you go off to university,
mm,
right? It's the same way when you wake up from consciousness levels. You graduate, then you have a graduation ceremony. In some people's life, it come across as a quinceañera, a coming out ceremony for the princess in the Latin community,
mm,
or a sweet 16 coming out. So she's passed two cycles of life at 14 of 7 years. And then she evaluated for from 12 to 24 months by the elder women to determine when she's functionally fit to be presented into the society is the celebration. When they approve her, she have her ceremony and she is celebrated, right? Because she made it to the through the first two cycles of life. Now she's going into the cycle that requires greater accountability and awareness of the self. Only they erase part of the training methods out of the equation so that they don't have the same family building qualities that they had in times past, right? So we had to restore all that stuff back by putting everything back in its proper position because you shifting the matrix from the microcosm and it's trickling back up to the macrocosm, and then it's going to balance the two out.
Mm. Rod, how long would you say who we call black people, how long have we been down here on Earth? I
Ever
hear,
since ever since Earth been here.
how long would you say that is?
Well, it depends on the terms of years, and it depends on well, uh, at which period it wasn't always Earth.
What was it?
At one time, it was the great water planet called Tiamat.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A lot of the water from the planet, when the asteroid belt was knocked from it, it took a lot of water from the planet that went out through what we call the South Pole, right? And the ice shelf is not an ice wall, it's a shelf. And there's a civilization under it that when the calamity came, drew the water over the civilization and flash froze them, right? So during World War II, through going into the archives in Tibet, and in Tibet they have certain archives that if he was able to reach certain levels of adept understanding, they obligated by universal law to reveal that secret.
Mm.
So when he was coming through the Thule Society, he was looking for the key to where the ancients were still present on Earth because their energy signature never left,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we figure that out, it's like we doing the rescue in the video game of the ancient ones. Now, we didn't always look physiologically the same, and we wasn't always brown. We used to be shades of blue and green because we were surviving off monoatomic platinum group metals,
Mm-hmm.
which changed the conversion in the carbon. The conversion of the carbon is based on iron now, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to magnesium. So it's an iron copper fusion in the metabolic rate, in the energy conversion. When we used to be more like chlorophyll, our skin color was varying shades of green and blue according to the monoatomic chemical that was most prominent in the system or most active. So it's like they was putting a supercomputer, which is the DNA, into its optimum function. We used to materialize at will into the physical form, and that's why you can't find us in a lot of the fossil records.
Mm.
We didn't have death. Death is a construct of the 3D by the chaos beings that came in as the rogue element, or what we would call him the problem child in the school.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere they go, they starting some shit with all of the good kids. So none of
Mm-hmm.
the good kids can't get a decent education because they getting bullied by the problem kid.
Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
law of nature say adapt. That means that even in this scenario, we don't have to like it, but we have to learn from it in order to overcome it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we get the imposters out.
Mm-hmm.
When we say get the imposters out, we talking about getting out all of the problem children that corrupted the workings of the system. So
Mm-hmm.
if we was playing the video game, it's like somebody, like you sitting there playing your video game, having fun, and your big uncles come in and just start attacking your character on the game so that you can't never win,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? So you always getting shot in Fortnite by friendly fire.
You know, I'm curious, Rod, when we talk about, these entities and aliens.
Have you ever heard of the White D. Eisenhower?
The president, yeah, 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 yeah.
You
I heard,
ever
I heard
heard
about
of,
the galactic council or
right?
something like that, right?
Yeah. You ever heard of Valiant Thor?
No.
Valiant Thor was the Venusian, that means he was from Venus,
Mm.
that lived 3.5 years in the White House during the Eisenhower administration as an advisor.
And he was from Venus.
Yeah.
Mm.
And during the Eisenhower administration is where the Galactic Council intervened and created something called the Military Industrial Complex in order to establish something called the Leviathan Force.
Mm. Boy, you got to explain this to me, brother.
The American military has a Operation Leviathan Force that is the blueprint for the Galactic Council to reclaim the world from the tyranny of what we now know today to be called the deep state, that was controlled by something called archons. And the queen of the archons would dwell in the basement of the Vatican and give her edicts to the Pope. And so the archons is the rulers in secret, and they are the ones that's pulling the strings behind the scenes. So we have to read all of the symbolism in order to see what they're doing. I kind of got off track to where I was going with
Oh no,
that.
no, no, no. You going? It's perfect. Go ahead, brother. Yeah, go ahead, brother. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so now the orders come in reverse down, and it involves the monetary system.
Mm-hmm.
It involves the political system, and the political system is a game of public checkers played in the presence of the public to distract them from the man behind the curtain. And the man behind the curtain don't want to be seen, because if the people seen the man behind the curtain, they'll rebel,
Mm-hmm.
because he'll turn out to be a computer,
Mm. Mm.
and it's an artificial intelligence,
Mm.
which takes us back to the video game aspect. We in the simulator in our avatars, taking everything too personal in order to wake up in the matrix. My dumb ass took both the red and the blue pill. So now I'm wide the fuck awake in the matrix trying to tell y'all how this motherfucker works,
Mm.
right? So the stage show that is politics is the way that they put in the public domain their orders and their rules under the pretense of the people making up the orders and the rules, right? And they use admiralty law as the mean to apply the appearance of legitimacy by the paperwork. Our people are not asking the simplest question possible about our current circumstances and condition, and we don't know why it don't make sense that they're not asking. Before 1492, we didn't have no prisons over here. The first prison built over here was built in Philadelphia in the 1800s, so they're not even 200 years old.
Wow.
So before the prisons over here, what was we doing to keep us from need anything called the prison,
Right, right.
right? Because the people from the land, we know how to respect each other's boundaries and live in harmony all across the land. But the ones that's not from the land cause mischief and bloodshed all over the land, hoping that they can confuse the heirs and claim it as abandoned property off the eminent domain at the close of the age because we failed to do our part. So the application of higher law becomes required to override the onslaught of the legal fiction called the corporation or the nation. So if you're looking at how the matrix plays out, it's like telescoped in on itself in cycles.
Mm, mm,
By like this conversation interrupt the cycle for so many people, it allowed them to actually see the fabric of the story that's being told. That's grid talk.
mm,
Because you have to be able to use the stories to strike the proper vibration in order to awaken their own memory so they don't require your information, they require the self awakening,
mm,
right? This is us coming into that balance that's required to operate within the matrix without being victims as a extra in the video game.
right, right, right. Rod, you ever took DMT or shrooms or any of that? You ever took any of that to tap in?
Yeah. When I found I found a book called Breaking Open the Head
Mm,
about a shaman's search for enlightenment through hallucinogenics.
mm,
And in our culture, we did ayahuasca ceremonies, we did toadstool ceremonies. They used the venom of the toad ceremonies, and the other side of the water, the Afar Inca, they used the Ibogaine ceremonies, and they got a different psilocybin over there that they use that Shaka would use with the THC.
mm,
All of the organic tribes are have been cannabis consuming people, and that's why they banned it because the ability for us to psychically communicate when we smoke cannabis is increased 1,000-fold.
mm, mm,
So it goes back to the history of the assassin.
mm,
The word assassin, if you do the etymology, comes from a Persian word, hashashin.
mm,
Hashashin is those who are high on the hash, right? And the hash is made out of the marijuana plant by condensing the chemicals in it into a more where you can get a heavier dose of those same chemicals.
right.
Now you got something called the endocannabinoid system. That's your auric field or your spirit body.
Mm,
We used to use the THC as a means to strengthen the auric field in order to give us more spiritual control if we gift it,
mm,
right? Because when you are have the spiritual gifts and you haven't learned how to control them, you can inadvertently cause major problems without knowing it to other people
mm,
because you can interfere with their energy output input cycles,
mm,
right? So we always pass in psychic messages, but only a few of us is tuned in to the psychic channel to a high enough degree to catch them.
Like how you said that, the psychic channel. You got to be tuned into the psychic channel to catch these messages.
Right. So the receiver for
Mm,
the psychic messages don't come in through the brain.
mm,
They come in through the heart
mm,
as a telepathic message,
mm,
right? And then it shoots the chakra shoots the question through your crown chakra to prime creator. When prime creator answers, it comes in as what we call a download. The reason we call it that is because right here on the right side of your head, you have a part of the brain called the anterior gyrus. And it's known to be activated when spiritual people are receiving spiritual messages, right? So our elders knew this and they encoded it in the art and in the architecture. So if we lose track of the oral tradition, we don't have to rely on what they wrote on the paper because they wrote on the paper to give us the appearance of legitimacy, right? So anybody can be the leader as long as they look the part. But when the real leader comes, all the rest of them have to take a back seat because the leader in our culture is the one who knows the way, right? So in let's say in YouTube culture, if I wanted somebody to guide me on how to develop my YouTube channel, I come to Brother Rich. Hey, Brother Rich, can you show me how this done? In that case, you then taking the lead and you also becoming a mentor and a teacher to a mentor and a teacher. So we just switch positions as you explain to me how to develop a YouTube channel. Because you know the way already, and the verification that I'm right is in the fact that you have an open and functional YouTube channel, right? And you have a lot of people that listen to your channel. Now, I hear some people complain about certain guests and they not understanding journalism to the degree that you understand journalism. You can't only have the people that I like, right? Sometimes you got to have people that I don't like to give an opposing viewpoint in order to make sure that the viewpoint I gave was even correct. Because if it's not challenged, how are you going to know it's right? Right? So this is what we be exchanging ideas, even under hostile circumstances, would look like an adversarial position.